Hey everybody, today I'm up here with Greg and we're going to talk about either is it better to buy a house or to build a house. So welcome back to the channel.
Thanks for having me again.
Now everybody knows you and your story. You know, you bought this piece of land, you built your house, and I think the total cost was...
Total cost all in, furniture, everything, 7.8 million pesos.
Okay. And Jan and I just videoed a house that was for sale not far from here at the border of Darwin and Zamboanga, with the same view for 10.5 million. And we got a lot of comments on that about, I would never buy that house, I'd build my own. So I think there's pros and cons to building your own house.
Certainly is.
What is the biggest plus to building your own?
Well, I think there's a couple. Number one, you get to design the house that you want. You get to watch it be built, hopefully. You get to pick the color of the tile, for example. You know, the total design itself can be what you want. When you buy an existing house, you're buying the bones of the house, the structure of the house. Plus, typically, if you're gonna build a house and sell it, you're gonna look to make a profit.
Yeah, that was one of the points. They were comparing the price of that house, and you can't compare the two. They're two totally different houses.
True.
But the price they were asking was just under 200,000 US, and you did yours for about, like you said, 141.
Yeah.
So people are entitled to a profit. If someone builds something, you have so much sweat equity into this house.
Yeah, if I was going to sell this home, I wouldn't ask the same price that I paid for it. I would want to make a profit. And typically, you know, this number could be negotiated, but 30% profit. So what I paid for it plus 30% would be what my asking price would be. So of course you're going to try to make money on it.
And you got, when you buy a house in the US, they have comps. So if you buy a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 2,000 square feet, you can look at the comparables in the neighborhood.
Right.
So you get an idea of the price. Here in the Philippines, there is no comparable. It's, unless you know somebody who recently bought a house, everybody has a different amount of money put into the house that they're building.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
People who built their house pre-COVID got in a lot cheaper than you did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, prices usually never go down for the most part. So people that built a house, say 2 years ago or 3 years ago, paid less per square meter to build it than I did. But now the people that are building homes now are paying more than what I did. So it just goes with the territory.
So you had 141,000 roughly.
Yeah.
This house would probably cost you 150 plus to rebuild?
I would imagine 150, maybe 160 with the cost of steel and the cost of cement.
So
things like that.
inflation is a big deal here in the Philippines, especially in the building material, and steel's the big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely steel, and the price of the land. The price of land, what we paid for our land here compared to what just a few lots down, big difference over the last year.
Yeah, Jan and I have noticed the prices of land has gone, I think it's gone crazy, but it is what it is. People are willing to pay that price, so that's what it's going for.
And another big thing is really the bones of the house. When you're buying an existing house, was it built properly? Probably, but you don't know. If you are building your own home, you can really look at the quality of all the items that they're putting into the house. Are they using the right amount of rebar, the right size? Was it done to blueprint correctly? Did the contractor cut corners in any way? And then like this house, for example, we have typhoon clips in our rafters. You know, if you buy an existing house, did they go that added expense to make sure that they really tied down your roof to the structure of the house? Maybe they cut that corner and you won't know because the roof and the ceiling is in, and you just have to assume that it was built correctly. So that's another factor.
That's another factor. Yeah. And the difference with that house, and this is the last video we did on a new home, it had a rooftop deck.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like that, but you don't.
No, we did not want that. One, we wanted to build a one-story home because I don't want to do stairs. I'm not getting any younger, so building a two-story home was not for us. And then number two, for me personally, I like to be in shade. So if I had a roof top deck, which you don't want to do the stairs when you get older, I would have to put a roof on it because you wouldn't want to sit out in the sun. It would be really something that you'd use during the nighttime.
Nighttime.
Yeah.
And a rooftop deck is much more expensive to build than a house with just a standard roof.
Oh yeah, your cost per square meter, your contractor would charge you more because more than likely you have a concrete roof. And then you build that structure on top of that. You'd have electricity up there. You would probably have a railing. So there would be definitely added costs.
Now, to me, some of the pros of buying an existing house is the immediacy. Once you find it and you buy it and you get the title done, you can move in.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
when you go to build a house, you still have to wait that period of time for the title to come in. You have to buy the land.
Right.
And you're really not going to be building until you get clear title in most cases.
Correct. Yeah. And the stress of building.
Stress of building.
There's a cost associated with that. But again, for us personally, we wanted a specific type of house. Because if you build an existing house, again, you walk into the bathroom and go, wow, I don't like that tile. A lot of people that buy existing homes here, what I found out is they do a renovation.
Yeah, they remodel the inside.
Right.
Usually tear the cabinets out
Yep.
or whatever they want to do.
Yep.
And even though that house was asking 10 plus million, guys, you need to use your negotiating skills here. I know for a fact you should not buy anything at list price. There's a 10% plus amount of margin that the owner is set for negotiating. They factor in negotiating in their asking price.
Yeah, and one would assume, and again, I always use 30%, right? You try to make 30% profit if you build a home. So, do the numbers and then start there.
Yeah.
And that would have the owner of the home break even, which, why would you break even? You would want to make some money, of course, unless the economy is really bad, because there is examples of people that will break even or even lose money on a house.
Yeah,
if they want to
depending on
get
the
out.
economy, but in most cases, people are entitled to make a profit.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't build a house, you wouldn't even invest in a house without thinking it's going to increase in value.
Yeah.
If you didn't believe that, you'd just rent
Yeah.
all the time. So I'm more into the immediate gratification. When I go into the department store and I want something, I want to take it home with me. If they say it's going to be 2 weeks before it can be delivered, I really don't want it. I'm one of these guys, instant gratification.
So you don't like Shopee and Lazada?
Nah, I don't even like Amazon, except I'm in the Philippines, so I have to deal with the waiting period.
Yeah.
But that's with the new home. Now, there's also a cost factored in capital gains. When you buy land, you're paying that you've increased your wealth, right, by property, and you have to pay a capital gains
Yeah,
tax.
it's capital gains, and there's another tax that they usually group together. I think the capital gains is 6%, if I'm not incorrect, and then there's another tax of 1.5. So basically, it's 7.5% of the purchase price.
And so if you build your own home, you don't pay that, the final value of the house, you don't pay that 7.5%.
When we bought the land,
The land you did,
but not the house.
but not the house.
Correct.
Where if you buy an existing house, you have to pay that 7.5%
Yep.
on the total sale price there.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing there's an additional cost to whatever you buy of tax. And we think back in the States, capital gains is at the end.
Right.
You buy the property for X amount, you sell it, and then you pay tax on the
Right.
profit. Here, they get it up front.
Yep, absolutely.
Up front. Now, the other thing is your sweat equity. Now, this is the thing that really gets me, is how much time you spent physically on this house.
Yeah, for us, we wanted to build this house in 6 months. We wanted to be very aggressive. A lot of people said it would never happen. Typically, and I know it varies from house to house, region to region within the Philippines, but typically it takes about 12 months to build a home. And we didn't want that. We wanted a house built in 6 months because we needed to rent.
Right.
So I signed a 6-month contract, but if you're gonna build an existing house, you're gonna, come into an area, you're gonna meet up with a realtor, you're gonna start looking for houses. That's gonna take time. You gotta get to closing. It's gonna take some time. So you're gonna have to rent anyway.
Right.
But we only rented for 6 months. We moved in this house day 184. So that's 6 months and 4 days.
4 days.
And then there was still some construction going on, and it took 6 months and 20 days for the construction crew to be completely done. So they were out of here in less than 7 months.
So your sweat equity though, you were always on site.
Yep.
And if if you needed some supplies, you would get in your truck and.
Yeah, if it was something that I was responsible for. I mean, the contractor did a nice job because I had a contract. So he paid for everything except for certain items, but there was some extras. And when there was extras that need to be purchased, I ran down to the hardware store and picked it up and brought it. So there is an effort. You have to have, I guess, the energy level.
The energy and the dedication to make sure it gets
And the
done.
time.
Time also.
To put into it. But I wanted to be here. I say it all the time on my channel. This house was built in 184 days. I was here on site 181 of 184. And the 3 days that Wilma and I missed was we were scuba diving. We got certified in scuba diving.
So you had 3 days vacation.
3 days vacation with the critter hunter.
With a critter hunter. I hope that boat floats, Justin.
Yeah.
I want to go to Apple Island. I don't trust your boat.
We'll go together.
We'll go together.
Yeah.
Extra Life Fest.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have to do also with your age and your health, guys. Me personally, I'm at that point, I'm 70 coming up. And I don't want to spend all my time building a house. I would love to. And I can't afford to build a house from ground up. But if I could, I still don't think I'd want to be building it. I think I'm going to go buy an existing home and use your negotiating skills to bring the cost down. Now, what is the biggest negative to building your own home? What do you think the biggest negative, or was there any?
I can't think of anything other than the time.
Your time?
Yeah, the time it took to get built. But if you think about it, if you get the right contractor and you do build it in 6 or 7 months, once you move in, you can be happy like we are, saying we got exactly where we wanted, we got all the finishings we wanted, the style, the design of the home that we wanted, and it took us 7 months of our life. So is that a lot of time? Not really.
Not really. It's going to take me 7 months to find, the next house that Janet and I want to live in.
Yeah.
We're going to start about that time, end of November, beginning of December, and our lease is up in June. So here in the Philippines, you have two choices. You have time or you have money. It's like going to get a driver's license, going and get a 13A visa. Do it yourself if you have the time. But if you have the money and you want, time is precious. So you pay someone to get that. So no negatives to the house. How much more construction or detail work was there after you moved in and the contractor was finished with his part?
For the most part, the house was complete.
It was complete.
But then Wilma and I love projects. So, we're, putting solar on the roof, for example. We're going to put a Baha'i Kubo in. Little things like that just to improve the house. Of course, furnishing the house. For the first month, we didn't have any pictures on the wall, things like that. So just little things, but the contractor did everything that we wanted. We had a punch list at the end. He completed the punch list, and it was basically ready to go in less than 7 months.
Now, was this contractor, was he a Filipino, or did he have a background in other countries building?
Yeah, he was an American.
American
builder, yeah.
So it was easy for him to build to the specs you wanted. He was familiar with everything.
Yeah, I mean, he was well versed in blueprints. So when my architect and myself, we designed the house ourselves. Wilma and I sketched it out, gave it to our architect. He did the 2D rendering. We went back and forth with certain things. And then once we approved it, he went to blueprint. And all we simply did was we had a meeting between myself and the architect and the contractor. And we sat down and he looked it over and said,
Finalized everything?
I can build this home. And at that point, we went to contract with the local contractor.
Now, there's one other type of house here that you could buy, and I call it the broken dream house. You'll drive around, you'll find a lot, the house is halfway built, or it's, you know, and the roof's not all the way done, or whatever. It's a foreigner who came here, and he's building a house, and many different factors. He could have gone broke, could have had an emergency and gone back to his home country, or he could have passed. Would you ever think of taking a project of a house that was already started and maybe sitting for 2 or 3 years?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No.
No, you think, is there too much risk in that with,
Well,
with the construction? Like you'd want to tear it all the way down and start over?
you would think so. You just don't know if it was built properly. And if it sat out, you said 2 or 3
Yeah,
years,
just sitting-
it's exposed to the weather. You know, all the rebar and the concrete has just been, you know, the weather has been beating on it. So does that make a difference? I don't know, I'm not a contractor, but I would assume, I'd rather spend my retirement dollars on new. And then once it's done, again, realizing your point is very valid. It took us 7 months to get there.
Yeah.
So my life was basically halted. We did no travel. We didn't even go out to dinner much because we were so exhausted from being here all day long. So we did invest a lot of sweat equity, a lot of time, but 7 months went by quick.
Well, you're staying busy. I could see the day go, when you wake up in the morning, you go do the list that you had, and you go up to the project, the house there. And then at night, you're having dinner with your wife, and you're making your list for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Things you have to do. So it's not an 8-hour-a-day job. This is like, it encompassed your whole life.
It did. Now, we didn't really have to do a list because again, our contractor handled 95%.
Well, I mean, a list of what you needed to do
Yeah,
that day,
yeah.
things you wanted to accomplish that.
Yeah, once that house got very close to being completed, meaning the shell of the house was up and you're getting to the finishing work, that's when things gets busy. Because the contractor will say, hey, I'm getting ready to put the tile, for example, in the main room here. Well, we picked out a very specific porcelain tile that we wanted here. Well, it wasn't in existence in DUMAGUETE. We had to order it. So it took 2 months to get here because it was a special tile. So you really had to have a good relationship with the contractor. So you didn't want to order that tile when the contractor wants to start laying the tile.
It gives you enough heads up.
Lead time
to get that done.
Exactly right.
Did
So,
you find out of stock or the difficulty to get some fixtures that you really like? You know, your house is, you know, very nice fixtures, light fixtures, wall fixtures and such.
there was some, but we basically found everything before we needed it. And again, having that, being proactive, you know, I knew it when they were starting to work on the kitchen or getting ready to put the lights up. Well, when are you going to do that? In 3 weeks. Okay, well then we need to go out and pick the, you know, the light fixtures. So we did weeks in advance, the reconnaissance, and then we would go to the contractor and say, okay, we found it. And I would always take a photo of it.
Right.
You know, I found it in City Hardware, and here's the photo of the item number, and then he would swing by and purchase it.
Now on an existing house, and we'll go back to that house that was in the video. What if you buy an existing house and you don't like the cabinets? Now, I've bought houses in the US and I've remodeled the kitchen and remodeled the bathroom. Is that a very expensive process, do you think, to tear out the tile and put in new tile if you didn't like that tile? Or the cabinetry?
Yeah.
I think it'd be more expensive than just adding it when the house is new.
I would think just doing it
The
with a
tear down.
raw house would be easier, because whenever you have to tear things out, it's all that labor, even though labor's cheap here,
Yeah.
to tear everything out and then have it redone. And then you talk about having, you know, sweat equity and time, that all takes time as well. So
Plus-
are you gonna be living in that house
that's a
while
good
it's on
point.
a renovation? You may still be renting, waiting for the renovation to be done, and then at the end of the day, are you gonna sit back and say, well, I wish the bedroom was a little larger?
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna move walls.
That's right.
I guess you could, but then it would be a lot of expense.
That's a lot, because these walls they're not just drywall and 2x4s.
Right.
You know, a well-built house, there's a lot of concrete
Right.
in the wall.
And rebar.
And rebar.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so much rebar. How much rebar did you use in this one?
I would love to know the linear feet it has to be 10 miles. I mean, because there's rebar horizontal, there's rebar vertical in all the columns.
Yep.
The amount of steel that's in this house, and the pool for that matter, was staggering to me. Again, I'm not a contractor, but for me to, I even would say, and of course I wouldn't say it to the contractor, I think it's too well built. If that's a possibility, because every 3 courses there's rebar. They're all tied together, every 20 inches vertically going right up the walls. And that's not even a load-bearing wall. A lot of people talk about hollow block, how poor quality they are. It's not load-bearing. It's like a sheetrock and 2x4 wall in the US.
But they use the hollow block.
But they use the hollow block. I mean, I always say all the time to people who ask, you know, take a big rock and throw it at your wall, your sheetrock wall in the US, it goes right through it.
Yeah.
Throw a rock at this wall, it may chip the paint. That's all it's gonna do. So these houses are well built. There's no wood at all in the construction of this home.
And that's something you mentioned earlier. If you're buying an existing home, check the attic, the roof for the wood.
Well, some homes here, they cut costs by, instead of having steel trusses, they use cocoa lumber. They use wood, like they do in the US.
Yeah.
But here they use metal because of the humidity, because of the termites, and just the plain heat. I mean, how hot is an attic in the Philippines? I have no idea. I know we have vents, but I know it's very, very hot.
I know my attic in Las Vegas was
really hot.
hot.
Yeah, really, really hot.
And that was a well-built house.
So do you want to put wood, and if you're buying an existing house, does it have wood up there and you don't know it?
Something to check.
Yeah.
The other thing is, people always say they want to have a pool, and maybe you can get a great deal on an existing house, and the house is what you like, but you want to add the pool.
Yeah.
What do you think the cost for a basic pool? Nothing super fancy, but
A decent pool, again, it's according to size. It has a lot to
Yes.
do with the size. But a pool like mine today, 1 million pesos?
1 million pesos, and that's 20,000.
20,000 US dollars.
So
Yeah, you'll have a nice pool for that cost.
you can build here cheaper than you can in the U.S.
By a lot.
By a lot.
Yeah.
But it's still expensive. Nothing's free, nothing's cheap. And labor, all of a sudden, I'm finding it hard to get someone to come to my house and do work.
Well,
Everybody's busy.
It's funny you say that because I'm having the same issue.
Are you?
Wow, we haven't had that conversation.
No.
I have some work to do. I try to do all my landscaping myself, all the projects, but there's certain things like hauling rock around,
Yeah.
I just don't want to do, not out in the sun. So I'm trying to get a couple of laborers up here, and we're having a hard time
Seems like
finding somebody.
Everybody's working.
Yeah, there's so many builds. In fact, there's a build just 2 doors down from us, and they're getting ready to lay off all the laborers. So we know one of the guys there because he worked at this house. So we went to him and said, how many more weeks do you have? And he said, just 2 more weeks. And he already found a full-time job. He was going to do a couple days with us. And he said, I can't do it because I don't want to miss a chance on a full-time job.
For a couple of bucks.
Yeah, it could be 6 months, 12-month build
Yeah.
for your 2 or 3 days, and I perfectly understand that.
I used to have a guy come out to our house to do some side work. I'd give him 400, 500 pesos
Yeah.
for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And he was real happy with that on a Saturday, Sunday. But now he's got full-time work.
Yeah.
And it satisfies all his needs, and he has his own family time, so.
It's because there's so many builds in this area, they can just go from one build to the next.
And we see in Cebu, when we travel up there, all the high-rises going up, all the construction.
Yeah.
And so it seems like the Philippines, the people are starting to work, and wages are starting to go up.
It's a developing country.
It is, and it's developing in the right way.
Yeah.
Maybe not what a lot of people think, come here and live really, really cheap. It is cheap compared to back home, but things are going up in cost here.
There's inflation globally.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the people are catching up. And that's what happened, like in China, that was the cheap place to build stuff, production, manufacturing. But then the wages started going up because people needed things, and it came balanced out to
Yeah.
closer to the U. And that's what's going to happen here. They've gone from that 400 pesos a day
Yeah.
or 500 pesos a day. Now people want 800.
Right.
So
Yeah.
wages are going up, materials are going up. If you are planning to come here and build, I'd get going soon. at least come here and buy your property and have that
Yeah.
in the bank.
That's the big piece.
Yes.
You know, so many people come up to our house and they say, you know, I'm looking for land. I always tell them, once you find your land and you're satisfied, and of course, all the paperwork works out, it can be titled, no issues there, that's the biggest chunk.
That's the
And then
biggest
everything else will fall in place.
Yes, you can step by step, you can
Yeah.
do things.
Yep.
And you'll have a basic idea of the cost, but getting your land, we have a friend, Norm, in the US, and they bought some land. They came here for a month, him and his wife's similar situation as you. She's Filipina, they've met, been in the US for 20 years.
Okay.
And
Similar story.
a similar story, they bought the land, and they're gonna come back in a couple of years and start to build.
Yeah.
But they wanted to get the purchase of the property out of the way, get the title work all taken care of.
A lot of people do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did it all at once. You know, we came here, found the land, found the architect, found the contractor. I was kind of trying to bum rush it a little bit.
Right.
And for what you just said, I didn't want to rent for years, waiting for a house to be built slowly.
Yeah.
You know, I even asked the contractor, could he put more people? We had 18 people here at one point. 18 workers on this house.
Usually I see about 10
Yeah.
on job sites.
We had 18.
18.
Because I wanted it built in 6 months. Now, that's another thing. There's so many builds now, and contractors are juggling multiple houses at the same time. I've seen it where, you know, there's a crew of 6 or 7 guys, just because there's multiple builds and he's spreading his labor out.
It's getting spread out.
Yeah, so it's getting more and more difficult.
And this area, Darwin now, down here, I'm starting to call this the Miracle Mile. It seems like everything above Darwin is
Yeah.
going for a high price now compared,
It was always Valencia.
it was always Valencia.
Years ago, the hot spot was Valencia, 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 and we looked in the Valencia area, but the price of the land was double.
Yeah, 35
Yeah.
per square meter on
It was
on a
double
main
the
road.
price. So Alma, who
Yes.
the real estate agent, who we care for very much, she comes up here and visits once in a while. She said, check out Dowen because it's up and coming. It's going to be the new Valencia. That was her words.
Yes.
So now we listened, and also because Dowen is very easy to work with the municipal. All the permits, the water here in Dowen, at least in this area, is very good, because you hear of stories where there's not water available.
Where I live,
Yeah.
my water pressure is like drip, drip, drip on my shower.
Yeah, so
Takes-
that's a
yeah,
consideration.
it is.
And if you buy an existing house, how do you know the water's good? I guess you would test it.
Yeah.
How do you know the electric is good? How do you know you're getting pure 220 into the house? You really don't know, I guess, until you have somebody come in to help you, you know, check it out. If you don't do all that due diligence and you purchase a house because you want that instant gratification, you want to, you know, move in right away, you might have poor water, you might have you know, electrical coming in less than 220 and you're having trouble with your electronics. So there's a lot of consideration before you jump into a existing
And I'm gonna
house.
get an existing house, back in the home country, you would get a mortgage. And so you didn't have to have the money up front. Here in the Philippines, you gotta have cash.
Yeah.
You gotta have cash. So, since you have to spend, you know, 10 million on an existing house, and if you have the time and you have the patience, you can build the house you want for that 10 million, maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on location and what you want. There's some houses I've seen built, that far exceed that 10 million.
Yeah, sure does.
You
yeah.
can get very extravagant out here.
Yeah, and you got to realize, you know, you've already said it, someone who's selling their existing house for a very good reason, it doesn't have to be if there's something wrong with the
Right.
house. There could be a reason why they're selling it that's, you know, not evil.
No.
They need or they deserve to make a profit.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they put a lot of effort into it. You know, they want to make as much as possible. But yet again, the person who's buying it, the buyer, needs to know how to negotiate, and hopefully you meet in the middle.
Negotiate, bring your negotiating skills. It's like buying property and houses here, even renting an
Yeah.
apartment is like buying a car.
Yeah.
You're gonna sit down and negotiate it. They've already marked it up. It's your job to find the lowest price.
Well, I could tell you a quick story. When I rented the place here, I said I only wanted a 6-month lease. So when I talked to the owner of the house, 12-month lease only. I will only do 6 months. He goes, I'm not going to rent you the place. Well, I knew I was gonna be in that apartment at least 6 months. I knew that. So I turned to him and said, I want a 6-month lease, but I'll pay 6 months up front.
That's what we did in Cebu.
And he looked at me and said, deal.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to sign a 12-month lease and then move in this house in 7 months and be stuck with the 5 months.
You have a commitment somewhere. You know,
Exactly.
we're both in the same agreement. If we make a commitment, a handshake with somebody, we're going to keep it.
Absolutely.
Here. Yeah. Use your negotiating skills. The only thing with rent up front now is the new thing I found in Cebu. You lose your ability to get something done. You don't have any leverage. So if you have an electrical problem or something needs to be fixed, you can't say, I'm going to hold the rent until you fix it.
Good point.
Because they have your rent.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
You know, there's pros and cons to that as everything in life.
Can have street smarts.
Can't, yeah. You
Have
gotta
lots
be
of
smart.
street smarts and negotiate.
Negotiate. Okay. You did me a big favor. I've been getting a lot of questions about the electrical. You know, you bring in over an electric shaver, it's 110, you're bringing over your appliances, your blender, and you made a video
I did.
to help people
Yeah.
out a little bit.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that video?
I could send you the link,
All right,
but the
yeah.
thumbnail itself was 110 volt or 220 volt. What should I do or something like that?
Because the power is a big deal here, and everybody asked me about my electronics, 110, 220. I've burned up so many things. I blew out every
Yeah.
breaker in an apartment, the whole building by plugging in the wrong thing. So check out that video and check out all of Craig's and Wilma's videos. If you're interested in buying, or you're just interested, they're an interesting couple with a great story. So until next time, thanks for watching.